Let's get started. My name is Akshay Raj Purohit. I am from fourth year ECE, and today I'll be taking your CS Saturday session on structures and classes. So, in the previous week, Sai Kiran here was teaching you all about functions, variables, and scope names, right? So let's recap that quickly because I feel like it would be better at least if we recap functions and variables because that would be, I mean, that is what we will be using as our fundamentals to learn classes and structures today. So let's go over that pretty quickly. Okay. So, okay. Is my code editor visible to you all? Saikan, can you confirm that once?
Yeah, Akshay, it is visible.
Thank you. So let's. The first thing is the first most important thing that you need to know, before beginning with anything in any programming language, to be honest, is variables. So to put it simply, variables are kind of storage boxes, and these storage boxes can store data of a particular kind. And the best part about this is you can label those boxes. So instead of calling that data directly every time, you can refer to it by the name of the box. So let's say my age here is 22, right? So the name of the box in this case is age, the label of the box, right? And the kind of data that this box is storing is an integer. So int stands for integer, and this tells us that age can only store integer data types. And 22 is the data itself. It can be anything, to be honest. It can even be 32. So these are variables, and variables are of multiple types. We have those are called data types, by the way. The int right here, it's called a data type. So int is the data type for the variable age, and age is storing the value 32. So like I was saying, we have variables, and in this case, the variable age is of has a data type int, and it stores the value 32. So again, we have multiple data types. We also have float. So the thing about int is it cannot store anything other than whole numbers. It can't store, let's say, like 32.5. It can't store that. I mean, if it does store that, you can see that it will drop the. I mean, it will truncate the fractional part. I mean, if I print it right now, all I will get is 32. Yeah, see, I hope it's visible. 32 right here. I'm not getting anything else, which means that. Okay, wait. Let me just make it more clear. Okay. Okay, yeah. So all that prints out here is 32. I mean, the decimal part, it just gets truncated. So in case we want to, store decimal values, we use something called float. Float helps us to store fractional values, and in this case, the point 0.5 will, I mean, the fractional part will still be printed. Yeah, see, this is 32.5. And there are multitudes of other data types depending on requirements. There's also, I mean, we also have characters, we also have strings. Strings is not, strictly a data type. It is actually an array of characters. Like this, for example, can on the data type char, the data type char can only store one character. It can't store more than a single character. Now, if I wanted to store more than a single character, like let's say my name is Akshay, right? I can't call myself A. I need to, if I need to store my entire name, I need to use strings. Normally, in the C language, what we would do is we would use character arrays like this and then store names. But in C++, we have the string container. So using this container, we can store the name directly. You see, in C, I had to declare the size of the array, which is 10 in this case. I had to declare the size of the array, but in C++, I don't have to do that. So let's just remove this. So yeah, so this is a variable name of type string, and it can store an entire, a sequence of characters. So now I guess you guys are, I mean, now I hope I recapped the concept of variables for you guys pretty quickly. So now let's move on to functions. So to put it simply again, functions can be thought of an instrument. Okay, and you feed this instrument some kind of input, and that function, that instrument may or may not reproduce some kind of output. Most functions produce some kind of output, when you feed them input, but there are some functions which don't give you and which don't return any kind of value. So let's go with the first type, which is the kind of functions that will actually return a value. Um the a kind of instruments where you feed input and then you get output. So let's see the first kind of functions, where you actually get an output. So yeah, you know what Boolean are, Boolean data type, right? Is right. It can only return either true or false. It cannot either store or return any other type of data. It can only store two things, which is either true or false. So let me use this Boolean return type function to check if I'm eligible to vote or not. I mean, this is pretty simple. I'm just going to give you an example. So I think most of us know this. If the age is greater than or equal to 18, you can simply return true, which indicates that that person is indeed eligible for voting. Otherwise, if he is not, if that person's age is not greater than 18, the function will return false. So age is 18. Okay, let me just put my real age 22. So now I'm going to call this function. I'm going to supply it with this data. Age is equal to 22. I'm going to supply this data to this function, and then this function will either return true or false depending on the condition that I've written inside. So in this case, the condition is if the age is greater than or equal to 18, it will return true. Otherwise, it will return false. So I can see if is eligible. I'm going to pass the parameter age is true, then I'm going to print eligible. Otherwise, I'm going to print not eligible. Right? Okay. So let me compile this. Okay, so some warning. Okay, it gave me a warning because I was not returning anything in the main function. I have to return something by default. Oh, sorry. Yes. So yeah, so it says that I'm eligible because if the age is 22 and 22 is greater than or equal to 18. So when this value is substituted here, if 22 is greater than or equal to 18, that is true. So it will return true, and I'm checking here if the return value is true, and then I'm printing that I'm eligible. So if let's say my age was 2 instead, if I was a little baby, so now it will print as expected not eligible because the age 2 is not greater than or equal to 18. It is less than 18, so it will return false. And since it will return false, it return false, and the check here fails if is eligible of age is true. I mean, it's not true because it's returning false, so the check will fail, and then the else condition, the else block will get executed, and then the message not eligible will be printed onto the screen. So that's what happens here. So like I was saying, there are two types of functions, right? One is one type of function is one where it actually returns something. In this case, it is returning a boolean, and it can also return multitudes of other things. It can also return an integer, it can also return a float, and only in this case it's returning a boolean. So there's another type of function which does not return anything at all. So those kind of functions, we call them void functions. So to indicate that a function does not return anything, we use the keyword void here. The void function, they don't return anything at all, and so this is why it's showing an error here. See, since a void function by default and inherently it can't return anything, if I ask the function to return something, it will throw an error because it is simply unable to return anything. So instead of actually returning something, what I could do is I could simply take all of this and simply paste it here, right? And here I can write if age is greater than 18. greater than or equal to 18, sorry. So I can simply print whatever I wanted to check instead of, returning a value. And now all I have to do is I have to pass this value, this variable age to this function. So, and I have to, all I have to do is pass the variable, and uh, it'll print the result automatically depending on the value of the variable, which in this case is 20. So the expected value to be printed is eligible, and that's what is printed on the screen. So again, let me check if this one works as well. If I give the age as 2, so not eligible. Okay. So now, by now we have covered two topics briskly. I know I have not covered them as deeply as Sai Kiran did last week. These are just, these were just meant to recap what you've learned last week, so that what I'm about to teach next doesn't feel too Greek and Latin to you. So yeah, so I've gone through variables and I've gone through functions. Okay, let's move on to structs then. So yeah, so last week, I hope I've recapped these topics pretty well, functions and variables. Scope names is not strictly necessary for what I'm going to be teaching you guys today. So yeah, so this is what we'll be seeing today, structs, classes, and structs versus classes. So yeah, let's recap just one thing one last time. The types of data types that we can see in C and C++. Basically, we have three types. As I mean, the image pretty much speaks for itself. We have a primary data type, we have a derived data type, and we have a user-defined data type. So let us look at primary and derived first. So like I was, explaining earlier today, primary data types are basically integer, character, boolean, floating point, and double floating point, void, and white character. So these data types actually indicate what kind of data we want to store in either a variable, or these data types indicate what kind of data we want to store in variable, or they can indicate the kind of data that is being returned by a function, or the kind of data we need to pass to a function, or the kind of data that the array stores, right? So this is fundamental, because without these, we can't have functions, we can't have arrays, because these data types indicate what kind of array, what kind of data type the array stores, what kind of data type the function will return, or what kind of data type the function accepts, and so therefore, we call these the function and array as derived data types, because these data types are derived from the primary data types. We cannot have a function or an array without these are quintessential to for these derived data types to exist. So now that we have a clear picture and a clear idea of what primary and derived data types are, let's move on to user defined data type, and that is what we are here for today. We are here to discuss class and structure. So user defined data types is what we're here to learn today. We have class, we have structure. So let's begin with structures. So I mean, if there's any first years in the meet here today, I think most of them are pretty familiar with what structs are. I mean, even if you're not, we'll be learning what they are today. So yeah, why? What is a struct? So let's look at this example here. Okay, this is a syntax. This is the syntax for the structure. I mean, you don't need to know what it means right now, but I think when you look at it the first time, you can see that it's something that's able to. I mean, it's something that contains multiple variables. I mean, I've taught what variables are, right? So you know what variables are. It's storing a float variable, it's storing an integer variable, and it's storing a string inside a single, you know, a code block here. So that is basically what structures are. Instead of okay, wait, that's not a good way to explain what it is. So let's say you have a person, right? A person can have a name, right? And a person has an age, right? And a person has a gender as well, definitely. The and So I guess this is pretty good for what I'm about to explain so far. What I'm about to explain. These three things are something that I believe that every person in the world has. Any you can pick any person, you can choose any person you want. Each and every single one of them has his own individual identity of sorts. You know, he has a name, he or she has a name, he or she has an age, and he or she has a gender. So if I were to store my details, right, what I would do is I would say that my name here is Akshay, and I would store, and if I wanted to store my age, I would store my name as, I would store my age as 22 in the variable age, and then my gender is male, so I'll store that here. So I think that would be enough if you wanted to store just a single person's details. If there is no other, a person that you want to consider, this would be pretty enough. But then let's say you want to store another person's name. Yeah, if you wanted to store just one person's details, you can simply declare three variables. I mean, you can simply declare these three variables and then store however you want to. But let's say you want to store another person's details now, right? So we have Sai Kiran here who's been helping me. Thank you very much. So if I wanted to store his name and his age and his gender, I would have to declare new variables, because see, if I can't store more than one person's details in these variables. I can only store a single person's details. So if I wanted to store his details, I would have to, declare multiple variables again. So I would have to do this, and then I would have to reinitialize. I would have to initialize these variables with Sai Kiran's details. Now there's another person in the same meet, RS. If I wanted to store his details, I would have to do the same thing again. I would have to declare these variables: string name 3, int age 3, and char gender 3, and do the same thing. But the population of this planet is I think 7 or 8 billion, and I can't really I can't really declare 24 billion variables to store each and every single person's details. I mean, the code becomes way too long, right? And we know that each and every single person, this has been established, right? Each and every single person will have his or her own name, his or her own gender, and his or her own age. So these three things are fundamental. These Each and every single person will have these things. So instead of one possible solution to this would be to obviously use arrays, right? But then again, it's not very efficient. And every time you want to like add another detail, right? If you want to add, let's say, something like education, I would have to again declare an education of whatever the initial size of the array is, and then again I would have to uh, uh, take in each and every single input for each and every single person, and I would have to like rewrite the whole program again and again. So because see, my education in this case would be um, BBIT, and Sai Kiran's education may be something else. It could be CBIT, and I would have to do this again and again. I would have to initialize. I would have to, declare multiple times. So to avoid this problem, this is what this is what we use to avoid that problem. We use structures. So structure, it's an abstract data type. It's a user-defined data type. In structures, in structures we don't have to do this again and again. You All you have to do is to define the prototype of the person, right? So let me try and demonstrate that. Struct person, right? I'll just copy all of these things. Okay, so now I've defined the prototype of a person. Now we know that each and every single person has a name, has an age, has a gender, and has an education. So I don't have to declare these variables again and again now. All I have to do here is I can simply do this person P1, P2, right? And now P1 dot name equal to Akshay, P2 dot name equal to Kiran, and similarly P1 dot age equal to 22, and P2 dot age equal to 20. Okay, wait. this will throw an error obviously because this is supposed to be an integer value, not a string value. So, so basically, formally speaking, structs, what they do is they provide us, with a way to club or, to group all of these individual variables into a single entity. So I don't have to declare these things again and again for each and every single new person that, that's either born or, or each and every person that dies. All I have to do is declare new variables for him. I already have a prototype for that person. I know that that person has his own name, has an age, has a gender, and will have an education. So this prototype will remain constant for each and every single person that's born and that exists on this planet at the moment. So one doesn't have to worry about the details of that person. All one has to worry about is the details themselves. All I have to worry about is what my name is or what Sai Kiran's name is. I don't have to like worry about redeclaring those variables, read and reusing them again and redeclaring them and reinitializing them. All I have to do is use this. Use the prototype of this person and then simply just feed in the values and it will get stored. Basically, struct is a prototype, right? It can have multiple. I'll tell you all the technical details. Details next, but basically this is what a struct means. It is a way of clubbing together different variables, different variables of different data types into a single entity. See, in array, for example, I can't store, for example, in this particular array of size 10, I cannot store anything other than integers. I can only store integers in this array because the data type of this array is int. But in struct, I can store data of different data types. I can see in this example, I can store name, which is of type string, and I can store age, which is of type int. I can store gender, which is of type char. I can store education, which is of type string. So in each and every structure, I can club all of these details and I can store them as a I can store them and I can access them anytime I want. Yeah. So what structs can also have, is okay. So let's go over the technical, names first. So yeah. So struct in here, the word struct itself, that is the keyword. This is what you have to write to let the compiler know that you're about to define a structure, right? And then you have student. Student is the name of the structure. And in our case, person is the name of the structure. It is the label that you give to the structure. Like I was previously telling you guys, you have variables which are boxes, and these boxes contain data, right? And you don't have to directly feed in the data anymore. You just have to refer to that data using the variable name. So person in this case, it is I wouldn't say that it is directly the variable name, but it is the name of the structure. And this is the variable name. Person is the data type now. Person is the data type, and P1 is the variable name. Okay, and all of these variables inside, string name, int age, char, gender, and string education. All of these things, they are what is known as. They're called member functions, member variables. String name, int age, char, gender, and string education. All of these are member variables. It just means that these variables are uh, members of the structure person. So yeah, dot. And now we can, I guess we can start with the member functions. So member functions are obviously functions that you define inside a structure, and these functions are a part of the structure itself. Okay, so let me um, show you an example. Um, void printing would be fine. Yeah, okay. Print person. So as you guys know, void will never return anything. So let me just print it here. Okay. As far as examples go, I feel like this should be sufficient. Yeah, so we have a member function now. It's called print person, and what print person does is it will print out the name and age of the structure. So in this case, we have two structure variables, right? We have of type person. We have P1 and P2, and they are variables of type person. So then P1 dot name, I mean the name of the first person is Akshay, and the name of the second person is Kiran. And similarly, the age of the first person is 22, and the age of the second person is 20. So now I can if I wanted to print the details of the person, instead of printing, instead of doing something like this, let's say you could do this. You can simply do p1 dot name and p2 dot name. You could do this. I mean, it would be syntactically correct and it won't give you any errors. I'll show you that. Yeah, so it's printing the name, it's printing my name. So instead of having to do this again, and I mean, if let's say there were like 100 persons, right? You can't like, obviously write the same thing again and again. And if I wanted to print more things, if I wanted to print my name, my age, and the second person's name and the second person's age, I would, the count of the lines would double. The lines of code would double. So instead of doing this, all I can simply just call the function, the member function, print person. And what it will do is it will print my name, and it will print the name and the age of the first person of P1. And next, if I want to print the details of P2, I can simply do the same thing, P2 dot print person. And it would work exactly like what I was showing you earlier. Having to write individual cout statement each time. Now, I guess a lot of you guys may have the a question like, this isn't exactly efficient because I still have, if I wanted 100%, I would still have to write P3, I would still have to write P4, and so on till P100. So the good thing about structures is you don't have to do this. You can use these structures just like arrays. Okay. So let's say I have 10 persons, right? So instead of writing person P1, P2, P3, P4, I can simply declare them as array. I can simply declare P as an array of 10 people. So this will work exactly as you would expect it to. Um, this is basically creating an array P of type person, and the size of the array is 10. So we have 10, persons. So now if I wanted to admit in, if I wanted to read in the details of the first two people, I can simply do declare an array. I mean, I can simply read in the details like I would read in the details of a normal array. Like let's say I have uh, an array of size 10. Normally, what I would do is I would go I would go through all of the indices. And this is what I would do to read in, to input each and every single element of the array. So i I can do the exact same thing for an array of type, an array of structures. So instead of, you know yeah, so here I can do p of I dot name and p of I dot age. And then when I, so what this will do is, I mean, instead of having 10, let's just take 2. Okay, so what it will do is it will go, I mean, it will iterate over from 0 to 2, and the I value will keep on getting substituted here. So in the first case, P of 0, the first person's name and age will get accepted. And when it comes to the second, when the value of I becomes 1, the second person's name and age will get accepted. So now I can use them just like arrays. And if I wanted to print these details, you already know that we have this function called print person, right? So what I can do is I can do the same thing. I can simply loop over the structure, and all I have to do is p of I dot print person. So yeah, now I have to enter my name and my age, which is 22. Next, I'll enter Sai Kiran's name. Okay, it's Sai. That should be enough. And Sai Kiran's age, which is 20. So now, as you can see, my details and Sai Kiran's details were printed onto the screen. So yeah, this is how you can play around with structures. This is how you can play around with structures. You can simply instead of having to declare various variables, like if I wanted 10 person's details, I instead of having to declare person p1, p2, p3 and p4 and so on, I can simply declare it as an array, and then I can simply use a simple for loop to read in the value of each and every member of that array, and then I can use similarly I can use another for loop to print the details of that person. So yeah, this was a pretty simple example, the person example. You don't see an immediate real world application to it. So I think it would be better if I gave you another example. Let me show you just what I mean. So let's declare another structure. Okay. So in this case, let me see. Yeah. Okay. So let's say you wanted to sign up on a website. Okay. It could be any website. It could be Gmail, it could be Facebook, just pick any popular website. So when we are signing up, we enter a lot of our details. We enter our name, we enter our age, we enter our phone number, we enter our gender, we enter our email address, obviously, and most importantly, we enter our password. So let's just take an example of Gmail. I think that would be better. So let me declare a struct called Gmail. Okay, so okay, so the first thing is name. Okay, this is something that you're required to give, definitely required to give when you're, when you want an email. And the next, okay, you know what? Let us just see what they require. That would be better if we, instead of coming up with. So I'll do the same thing. I'll declare the header files, IO stream, which is used for input and output, string, which is used to store and process and yeah, store and process strings. And this is a pretty standard statement. It just tells us that we're using the standard namespace. So now, yeah, like I was saying, let's see what Gmail requires. Okay. So Gmail requires first name, last name. It requires a username. It requires the password. And obviously, when you click on the next button, I'm pretty sure that it also will ask you, for a phone number as well, so that they can have a phone number as well. So let us make sure that we include that as well. Okay, so let me create a structure called Gmail. Okay, so the first thing that we'll have here is name, and let's not have first name and last name. Let's just simply have name, just to reduce the complexity a little bit. Okay, and then let's have username. Obviously, my email would be Akshay at codingstudio.club, right? So the username in this case is Akshay, and the domain will be at the rate codingstudio.club, and then we have password. Okay, password, and we also have phone number. We'll just store this as unsigned long phone number. Guys, by the way, you can simply store the phone number using a string as well, but I just want to store it as a long integer, because I think that would make the concept of structures more clear to you. I don't want you guys to get confused that okay, Akshay is just simply using strings in all of his in the structure Gmail. The only all of the member types have the data type string. So I don't want you guys to fall under the impression that you only have to use a single data type. As I've made it clear in the previous example, you can have multiple data types as your member variables in your structure. in this case, we don't need the other data types, so I'm just using string. It strictly depends on your use case. If you need just strings, go ahead with strings. If you need multiple data types, you may need string, you may need boolean, you may need character, you may need integer, floating point. Feel free to use them depending on your use case. But just to make it a little more, you know, clear, the concept of steps, I'm going ahead with the unsigned long data type. Okay, so now let me see the sign up process. The first thing what I have to do is I have to create an email. Okay, let wait. Yeah, wait, sorry. So let's say my email. Let me just call it Akshay. Yeah. Then, so now I think the concept is pretty clear. The the variable Akshay is a uh, is a it's a variable of type Gmail, and Gmail is a structure, and this particular structure contains four member variables, and three of these member variables are of type string, and the fourth member variable is of type unsigned long int. So that is what Akshay is. Okay, so now let's try to simulate the sign up process. Okay, the first thing is, I'm sorry for the background noise, by the way. Can't help it. So yeah, let's try to simulate the sign up process. The first thing I'll do is I'll ask you to enter your name. I'll just okay, let me just create temporary variables. I'll tell you why I'm creating temporary variables in a short bit. Okay, just hold on for 1 minute. The next thing is I have to ask for his username. So enter your username. Okay, so I think this is pretty much how a sign up process goes. They will ask you to enter your name, they will ask you to enter your username, they will ask you to enter your password, and then they'll ask you to enter your password again, right? Because they want to make sure that you've typed the same password. So I'll do that. Okay, and then finally we'll ask them to enter the phone number. Okay, and finally, and once this is done, what we have to do is we have to store all of these variables n, un, p, rp, and pn in this structure, in this structure, right? So let's define a function for that. We'll call it void set details, and what it will do is it will the parameters for this function will be these things only. Okay, and then we have unsigned long name only. Okay, all I have to do is I have to set these things. So we already have name, username, password. Okay, wait. Yeah. So we have name, username, password, phone number, right? Okay. let me just do one little change. Let me just change the type to bool. Okay, you'll see why. So the first thing here is you have to set the name equal to n. We are passing the value n from here. Wait, let me just do that. Set details n u n p r p p. Okay, so we are reading in the values of these variables: name, username, password, and repeat password, and the phone number in our main function, right? And then we'll be setting these details in this function. Okay, and if the details are if the details are valid, we'll be returning true. Otherwise, we'll be returning false. Okay, so yeah, let's do that. So name, okay, this name here I'll set it to n because that is what I'm passing. Next, username will be set to u1 because that is again what I'm passing. Now comes the password. So there's a reason why they ask us to confirm our password, right? The first time we enter our password, it can be anything. It can be anything here. And then if I enter the wrong, if I don't enter the same password again, my account won't get created, right? It is so the main reason they're asking us to do this is so that we actually remember what our password is, and so that we enter our password correctly. So what we have to do here is if and yeah, let's set the phone number as well before I do the next step. Phone number is equal to PN. Okay, and finally, what we can do is if P equal to RP, if password is equal to repeat password, then do two things. The first thing that we have to do is set the password is equal to P, and next you have to return true. Otherwise, just return false. Now, based on this, if this thing returns true, I can simply print account created successfully. Else, I can print could not create account. So let me just recap what I've written so far, so that it's clear for you guys. The first thing we do here is we create a structure called Gmail, and the contents of the structure are as follows. We have these three member variables. The member variables are name, username, password, and phone number. And then we have a member function. It's called set details, right? And one second. Okay, sorry. So yeah, so I have a member function. What this member function does is it will accept these variables as the parameters. The variables are name, username, password, the password repeated again, and the phone number. And it will store these details inside. It will store these details inside the member variables: the name, the username, the password, and the phone number. And what it does is, while it's doing that, it will check for one thing: if the password is equal to the repeated password or not. I mean, we type our password two times here, right? We type our password the first time, and then we type our password another time just to confirm that the password that we are typing is the password that we want. So that there's a very little chance that people actually type uh, the wrong password two times. So that is why it exists. So we are checking if the password entered the first time is equal to the password entered the second time, and if that is indeed the case, we are storing the password that they entered inside the password member variable. This member variable is a part of the struct Gmail, and if this is not the case, we simply return false. Now, in the main function, we are creating a structure of type Gmail called Aksai, and then we are declaring these variables just to store the details temporarily and to pass these variables to this function, to the set details function as well. So we ask the person to enter his name, we store it in N. We ask him to enter his username and we store it in UN. We ask him to enter his password and we store it in P. We ask him to enter the same password again and we store it in RP. And finally, we ask him to enter the phone number and we store it in PN. Next, what I do is I send all of these details, the name, the username, the password, the repeated password, and the phone number to the set details function of the structure Gmail. Okay, and what the function, what it will do is it will verify if the password that I've entered the first time, if it is equal to the password that I've entered the second. Okay, let me enter my name. Let me enter my username. I will just call it. Okay, yes. So the password here is, let me say it's akshay@123. I'll enter the password again. Akshay@123. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Okay, so it says account created successfully because the password that I've entered the first time is equal to the password that I've entered the second time. Okay, so let me do that one more time. This time, let me, enter the wrong password intentionally just to test it. Akshay@123, and let's say by mistake, I forget to enter the number 3, and the phone number could be anything. So could not create account. So obviously this code is working. All it means is, all it's doing is it's checking if the password that we've entered the first time is equal to the password that we entered the second time, and then it will create the account. Okay. One of the most common things that we also do, like, let me just go back here. Yeah. So one of the most common things that most of us do is we keep on forgetting our password, right? So let's say I have my email here, but I don't remember the password, right? I don't remember the password. So I click on forget password. So what the forget password thing will do is, normally it'll ask me the phone number and everything. But in many websites, we know that when we want to reset our password, it'll ask us to enter our old password first, right? It'll ask us to enter our old password first, and then it'll check key if the old password and the stored password is the same or not, and if the password that we enter and okay, wait, never mind. That is I'm sorry, that is changing your password, not forgetting password. Sorry about that. Yeah. So if you want to change your password, right? If you want to change your password, most websites, what they'll ask you to do is they will ask you to enter your old password first, you know and then once they will check that if the password that you enter as your old password, if it is matching with the password that is stored in the database or not. If both of the passwords match, they will allow you to set a new password. So let us try to simulate that. We'll do the same thing here. What we'll do is we'll do change password, and we'll have old pass, we'll have new pass, we'll have new pass again. So what we need to check here is, we need to check if the old password that they enter is equal to the password that is stored or not. Okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah. We need to check that. We need to check if the password that they enter as their old password is matching with the one that we have stored in the database or not. And if it is true, we can ask them to enter the. We need to check if we need to do the same thing here. We are checking if the password that they enter the first time is equal to the password that they've entered the second time or not, right? So we need to do the same thing. Once we verify that the old password that, I mean, the old password that they enter matches with the password that's being stored in the database, we need to do the same thing. We need to verify if the new password that they enter, it is equal to the new password that they enter again. We have to do the same thing. We'll have to ask them to enter the new password, and then again we'll have to ask them to enter the new password again. So let's do that. If new pass, let's check that. New pass again. Then we need to do two things. We need to change the old password. I mean, we need to change the password that is being stored in the database to the new password. And then we need to return true. This indicates that, okay, the password has been changed successfully, bolke. Otherwise, you can simply return false. So this particular case, it means that this particular case, it simply means that the new password is not equal to the new password that is being entered again. Okay, but the old password what they entered is equal to the password that's being stored on the database. But there's also another chance where the old password that they entered initially, it may or may not be equal, to the one that's being stored on the database. So if it is not equal, then again we have to return false. So is this clear, guys? I mean, I know it can be a little tricky to um, comprehend sometimes. Is this clear? I mean, what I've written here, why I've written else return false in this block, in this if block, and then why I've written else return false again outside of the if block. Is that clear? If you guys have any doubt, just go ahead and ask in the chat. Okay, so now let us try to simulate that change password functionality. Do you want to? So we'll ask them this question. If they want to change their, as soon as the account is created successfully, we'll ask them this question if they want to change their password or not. If they respond yes, we'll take them through the password changing menu. So we'll read in their answer, we'll store it in change. So if change is equal to yes, let's say they do want to change their password, we need to do three things. And if they want to, only if it's yes, okay. So yeah, let me create three variables again: old, new, and okay, wait, new password and new password again. So we need to ask them to enter their old password, right? So let's do that. Then they need to enter their new password in another text box. So let's just ask them to enter their new password. And finally, we need to ask them to enter their new password again. Just like when they were trying to create their account, we need to ask them to do the same thing. They need to enter the new password again. So finally, we'll do the same thing. We'll just pass these things to the change password function. If okay, we need to pass them, right? So say dot change password, old, new password, and new password again. So if this function returns true, if everything goes according to plan, we can simply print that password change successfully. If it doesn't go according to plan, if either the user enters the wrong old password, or if he enters two different new passwords, we need to simply say that the password was not changed successfully, could not change password. Okay, so let's try this again. So let me just go through this once again. So what we're doing here is we are creating another member function called bool, I mean a change password, and this thing it will return a boolean value, which means it can either return true or false. So what it will accept as parameters is the old password, the new password, and the new password again. The old password, we are using it to check if the password that he has entered, it is actually the the password that's being stored on the database. And then if it matches, we will ask him to we'll check if the new password is equal to the new password that is entered the second time. So if those two are equal, then we will set the password on the database to the new password. We'll actually change the password. But if it is not equal, if the new password that he has entered the first time, if it's not equal the new password that is entered the second time, then we will not set the password on the database to the new password, will simply return false. The other case is if the old password that he has entered, if it is not equal to the password at all that's being stored on the database, then again will also return false, which is here. So let's test it now. So we have to, okay, wait, let me just, okay. So yeah, name Akshay, username, let me just, password is Akshay123. I'll re-enter my password. This is me creating an account, by the way. This is not, I'm not yet changing my password. I'll be doing that next. Okay, I'll enter my phone number. Okay. So account created successfully. Okay, I forgot a new line. Okay, so it's asking me if I want to change the password. So since I want to, test my function, I'll simply say yes, I want to change my password. Okay, so now it's asking me to enter my old password. The old password, as you know, it's Akshay123. Okay, so now it's asking me to enter my new password. So let me make it Akshay1234, and it asks me to enter my new password Akshay1234 again. So yeah, so password has been changed successfully. Okay, so that's pretty cool. Let me test if it works. If it works even if I enter the wrong old password. Again, same thing. Akshay123, Akshay123, phone number. Yeah, this can be a little tiresome. I agree. So do I want to change password? Yes. So now if I enter the wrong password, so let's say enter something. New password can be anything. So could not change password because the old password itself was wrong. Okay, so this means that the change password function is working. So now there's a little security vulnerability. I mean, is that what I'm supposed to call it? Yeah, it's a kind of a vulnerability. If a person wanted to, he can hack into my account. I'll show you how. So simply, if he one thing that you have to remember is all of these member variables and all of these member functions, the member variables here, name, username, password, phone number, and these two functions, set details and change password, all of these things are public. What I mean when I say that they're public is that all of these can be accessed outside of the structure. So as you can see here, I'm able to access these things. I'm able to access these functions, the set details function and the change password function. These two functions, I'm able to access them outside of the structure. It simply means that that these members are public. Okay, so let's say if I wanted to change, if a hacker wanted to change my password, okay, if a hacker wanted to change my password, or simply he wanted to see what password was being stored on file, what he could simply do is here he can simply print. Let me print some menacing message. And then my password. So the password that's being stored. in in the structure, in the struct array of type Gmail. So let's see if that works. Let me print another message here. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, as you can see here, I am able to access my password. The password, as you can see, I've stored it here, AXAI, and I've created the account successfully. And the hacker, I mean, it could be anyone. He was able to access the password. I mean, he was able to access a member variable, the password that was being stored on the database. So we don't want that to happen, right? We don't want that to happen. We want to make sure that the password is not the old password or the new password. It should not be able, it should not be accessible by anyone other than the structure itself. So I mean, that's what I'm pretty sure that's what Google does as well. They don't want anyone to know your password other than you and you only, you alone. So let me do the same thing after changing password. So even this can be another attack, type of attack. He can see the old password and he can see the new password as well. So okay, wait, before I do this, let me just enter new lines. Yeah, give me 1 second, guys. I'll do that. Yeah, so okay, so I'll enter my name, I'll enter my username, I'll enter my password, enter my password again, I'll enter my phone number. So yeah, so the hacker was able to obviously access the password before I changed my password. So let's see if he can do the same thing after I change my password. My old password was, I mean, my old password at this point, even the hacker knows. So let me try and see if we can do the same thing even after I change my password. So again, we can see here that he was able to access my new password as well. So try to imagine the situation, right? You somehow a hacker gains access to your account, to your Gmail account or your Facebook account, and you realize that okay, there's someone who has access to this account other than me. So desperately you go and try to change your password, but then you find that the hacker was also able to access your new password. So changing your password here is a complete waste of time, right? Because no matter what you do, he's able to access your password simply by printing out this message. Since these member variables, they are public, so he'll be able to access any details he wants. He'll be able to access your name, your username. He'll also be able to change these details if he wants to. So imagine this: he gains access to your account, he changes your name, he changes your username, he also changes your phone number. That can be kind of a nightmare, right? So we don't want that to happen. So this is kind of where classes come in. Okay, classes, what they have is, okay, let me just come back to. So classes by default, the members, the data members, okay, though they are private by default. So the members of the classes, they won't be accessible to anyone unless we want them to be accessible. We need to explicitly specify that we want them to be accessible by anybody, by the main function or by any other function. If if we want the data members, or if we want the member functions to be accessible, we need to explicitly specify that. So this is the primary difference, between a class and a structure. In structure, everything is public. No matter what you specify, you can the username, the password, or it could be I mean, what I mean to say is the member variables or the member functions, all of them will be public. Anybody can access them in the program. But if we don't want that to happen, if we only want certain, I mean, if we only want the people to access only certain elements of the the abstract data type, we can explicitly specify that. We can use a keyword called public, and then we can specify that we want that to happen. So yeah, let me go ahead and show you an example, and we'll use this same exact example so that you can see how we can protect the members of our extract data type. So let me see. Okay. So I'll start off by showing you guys the demonstrating the syntax. Okay. We'll also need the string header. So the syntax of class is pretty much similar to that of struct. All you instead of the keyword struct, we simply say class. So class uh, person, right? Well, let's do that. Class person. Okay. Let's string name int age. और क्या है age, caste, gender, education. Let me just copy these things. No, let me just copy this entire thing. Okay, so yeah, and by the way, guys, I think I forgot to mention this. This semicolon at the end here is equally important in both class and structure. Okay, see in the structure as well, I've put a semicolon here, and again in class, I've put a semicolon here. So make sure that you put a semicolon at the end of it. So now let me try to do the same thing I was doing with structures. Okay, so let me create a person, okay, called P1. Okay, and then let me set his name called Akshay. P1 dot age equals to 22. P1 dot gender is male. P1 dot education is EC, because I'm from EC. And finally, let's try to print his details. So I think a lot of you guys have observed this already. These things, we have these red squiggly lines underlining these these statements. It simply means that there's an error. So let's see what error it gives me. Okay, so let's see what it gives me. So error, std string person name is private within this context. Again, the same error. The string name here, it is showing me that. 1 second. Yeah, so this name, yeah, the string name is declared private here on line 7. So again, int person age is private within this context. So age on line 24, see this line 24 is private within this context because it has been declared private here. Age has been declared private here. So it's pretty much the same error for the rest of these things as well. So what this means is I'm not able to access the member variables directly. See in structure, for example, I was simply able to access them. If I want to, see, I'm able to access p1.name, p1.age simply by not having to do anything special. I can directly access them, but I'm not able to do that here. It is because the access specifier in class is private by default. It means that all of these member variables and this member function, they're private by default. You can't actually access them unless you explicitly specify that you want them to be public. You can't access them. So if I want them to be accessible, I have to mention a special keyword. I have to say public, and then I have to save it. Yeah, so now the errors they're not there anymore. So let me try to compile this again. So yeah, it's printing fine. So as you can see, I explicitly mentioned that I want these things to be public. All of these things basically, because I've put this at the top, and this includes the name, the gender, the age, the education, and this function as well. This print person function as well, it's public, so it means that I can access them. So if I, let's say, if I just wanted to, set person, right? Wait, let me, wait, now wait. So if I just wanted this thing to be public and I want all of these to be private, I simply have to write public here. So now all of these things, the name, age, gender, and education will be private, but this particular function, it will be public. But how do I set these values if I don't, if I can't access these variables? How do I set these things? How do I set the values to this particular structure? So I can simply declare another function. Just what we did here in the Gmail structure. I use this function called set details, right? So let me do the same thing here. Uh, Void set details, and I'll accept these things as my parameters: the name, the age, the gender, the education. Okay, then I'll set them. The good thing about, yeah, you have to remember that it doesn't matter if these things are, these functions are in the public or in private, as long as these functions are within the class, within this class function, within this class code block. Any function can access any private member or any other private function. So if, let's say, um, this function was inside here, I can access this function from within this function, from within this public function. It won't throw an error here. See, it's not throwing an error because even though this is a public function and even though this function and these variables are private, this set details function can easily access this print person because it is a part of the same class. It is a member of the same class. So as long as these functions and these members, these variables are, members of the same class, they can access each other. Okay, so yeah, let me just comment this out. Oh, wait, let me just delete it. I don't need this. Yeah, so set details, yeah, here. Let me change this so that it's not confusing. Okay, now I have to set these things, right? So what is the name of this person classes? I mean, it's declared as name. So name equal to n. So n is the parameter that we're going to be passing to this function. And similarly, age will be a, age of this person, age of this private member age. So age will be equal to a, and this a here is the parameter that we're going to be passing to this function. And then gender is equal to g, and then education will be e. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And then let's have print person as well. Print person. Let's have the print person in public because I think it would make more sense that way. So let's print the gender and education as well. We've been ignoring them for too long. So I think it's time we have avoided that. Education is education. Okay, gender. Education. Gender. Okay. So now, yeah, since I've made it clear, I won't be able to access these details because they're private. I'll only be able to access these two functions, only these two. No matter what I do, I won't be able to access these class variables. So to actually set the details for this person, I will have to use this function set details, and I have to pass the details as my parameters so that it'll actually set the details for this particular p1. It'll set those details according to the parameters that we pass to this function. So let's do that. So instead of writing this, we'll be writing p1 dot set details, right? The first thing is name, so I'll pass the name. The second thing is what? Age. The third thing is gender. Okay, yeah. The second thing is age. So 22. And the next thing that I have to pass it is the gender, and the gender here is a character, a single character, so male, wrapped in single quotes. And lastly, my education, which is EC. So this will work. Okay, now I can simply print the details. I mean, once the setting part is done, I can print it.